Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the back doors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
Welcome to the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. And I thought that since we discussed Vampire the Masquerade last week, we may as well walk through a few episodes with some character creation stuff attached to it. If you head over to the GSMC_sci-fi Twitter, you're going to find a link to a PDF, which is a form-fillable PDF. But of course, you can print it. You can get it for free from the official sources if you just hit up Google. You can also find a lot of different ones that people have customized since V5 for Vampire came out. So today, because I came really close to playing one when I created my latest character, I figured I would try to create a Nosferatu. I know. I feel like it's going to be a challenging build. Now, the Nosferatu, if you remember from last week when we spoke, they are more of your classical vampire, like the real, shadows of the night, the grotesque, the very unpredictable vampire. So for the Nosferatu, the embrace is a journey through abjectation. They are really the most human or the most empathetic of all of the clans that are in V5 for Vampire the Masquerade. And maybe it's the pain and humiliation that has taught them compassion, because the Nosferatu, when they go through their change, their body takes on grotesque shapes and their faces change and they're very monstrous looking. So I thought that would be a very cool jumping in point for us to start with. Interesting thing about the Nosferatu is usually they live in tunnels and things like that, but I thought maybe I would take some of my inspiration for my Nosferatu from Phantom of the Opera. I think I'm going to try to see if I can come close to creating the Phantom with a Nosferatu. I think that could be fun. Okay, so there are a couple of things that we need to know right away. One of them is that unlike what I have experienced with my character building in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is the table of contents is not super helpful with the D&D books, but it is definitely where you're going to go to figure out where you need to go next in the book for Vampire 5e. The index at the back, not quite as helpful. I find a lot of the things I'm looking for are subsections of other things, but you'll have an easier time finding them through the table of contents. Just something to note. It's just something that I feel is a little bit backwards if you're trying to go from your D&D brain into Vampire the Masquerade brain. So those have been my experiences so far. All right, so what we learn about Nosferatu is that we have a couple of archetypes that we can select. There's the information hub. So the Second Inquisition, which they say happened, I believe it was 2008. It was the fall of Vienna. They founded ShriekNet. Many of the Toreador secretly proposed a toast to the collapse of the clan Nosferatu. The clan lost their credibility and many members, but those who endured and flourished had mastered the arts of secure archiving physically and online. They bolstered their existing bonds with their contacts and clients and steadily regained the trust of kindred who value a central information hub for research and the exchange of secret messages. In the era when contact and movement between domains grows more precarious every single night, Nosferatu, like these, have become invaluable. If they can guarantee privacy, they can name a price. So that would be not really an informant, but definitely a person who would be very streetwise. Sorry, a Nosferatu who would be very streetwise and who would be very experienced in just collecting information from people. Not even by nefarious means sometimes, just by talking and getting the people in the right kinds of moods. There is the domain Gumshoe. Nosferatu makes superb investigators as long as they stick to the shadows and wear plenty of layers. The Gumshoe is comfortable stalking the streets, darting from doorway to doorway in the rain, and shows no qualms whatsoever about breaking into homes, havens, or vaults for the precious last piece of the puzzle. Sometimes recruited as domain sheriffs, the Nosferatu emphasize research and investigation, preferring to take the thinker's route to most answers over violent means. The domain Gumshoe likely comes from law enforcement, which an amateur sleuth or has a bit of an academic background. So could have been a former cop who experienced the embrace and went Nosferatu. More animal than man, these ones identify more closely with the creatures scurrying beneath the city or flying through the suburbs at night than with the kind wandering the streets. Maybe a former pest controller, vet, or simply an antisocial individual. This kindred speaks to animals, controls them, and likely acts like one. Okay, that's not really what I'm after. Of course, there's Hunter of Monsters, which could be what we're after. Having for so long been associated with animals and isolation, very Phantom-like, right? Many forget that the Nosferatu can smash through a wall, break a spine, or rip a door off its hinges with minimal effort. With many of the Bruja and Gangrel gone from the Camarilla, Nosferatu now exercise their capacity for brutality at much higher rates. Often embraced from criminals or survivalists. Not surveillists. That's not even a word. So survivalists. Such Nosferatu suffer little consequence over beating an enemy to ash. Okay. And the rat. In comparison of Nosferatu to rats goes further than sewer dwelling and extended incisors. History reveals repeated instances when horrors turned on their masters for their own preservation, betraying their own for a little extra, or attempted to play both sides of the conflict. The rat may be involved in corporate espionage or claim to be an anarch, but scurry to their Camarilla prince at the first sign of trouble. Some rats do what they do just to stay alive and are not beyond sympathy. Maybe that's the one that fits the Phantom. I'm stuck between Information Hub and rat. He definitely wasn't more animal than man because he, I think, held on to his humanity very well. Okay, questionable for Phantom, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? And Hunter of Monsters, I feel like the Phantom kind of borders between Hunter of Monsters and Rat. I feel like he's somewhere between the two of them because Phantom had no qualms about violence, really, did he? And Rat, I think that him just being able to scurry in the shadows was something that he was very good at. I'm just going to go with Rat for the sake of this. So I'm just going to open up my form fillable PDF here that I have downloaded onto my Google Drive. And we're going to write down clan and we're going to select Nosferatu. Archetype doesn't really have a exact section on the character sheet. So what we will do is just add it into the notes section. By the way, it resizes as you type, so that's kind of great. We're going to make Phantom from the rat section. Definitely not an information hub because this guy was definitely out for himself, right? The Phantom. So maybe Rat is right. Playing both sides of the conflict, involved in corporate espionage, may claim to be an anarch, but scurry to their Camarilla prince at the first sign of trouble. Do what they do to stay alive and are not beyond sympathy. Yeah, okay, that's the Phantom. That's definitely the Phantom, the Rat. Okay. So we're just going to add that as a little note there at the bottom. Okay, so we have our first couple of pieces to the puzzle here. So now we need to come up with a name for our Nosferatu. If we're going to go with Phantom as the inspiration, why don't we pick a name from Phantom of the Opera? Let's just do a little Google here. Musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber. Yes, we want a list of characters. Do we have... Oh, there it is. We go. Wikipedia. Ideas. Original cast may have all of the who played who. Okay, so we have Raoul. That might be a good name. Carlotta. Monsieur Gilles André. Monsieur Richard Furman. Madame Geary. What if we just call him Gary? Well, I suppose we could take names from men who have played the Phantom. So we've got Martin Smith, Peter Carey, Dave Willits, John Owen Jones, Earl Marcus. Ooh, Marcus might be a good name. Marcus Thaxton. We will combine David Thaxton and Marcus Lovett together to give us Marcus Thaxton. That's a great name. Oh, I'm already in love with this character. Okay, so Marcus Thaxton. Great name. Give myself too much credit here. Player, that's myself. And Phantom of the Opera is set in France. So it's set in 1911. Do we have that be when our character was embraced, when he was turned, to continue to pull inspiration from Phantom of the Opera? Let's do that. So he was turned, because this is biographical data on your character sheet. Date of death. Let's go 1911. And let's say that he was, because the Phantom was a little bit older, correct? I feel like that's accurate. Christina and Raoul are in their 20s. Phantom is in his late 40s, early 50s. Woof, that's late to be embraced, but I'm kind of into it. Okay, let's make him 42. Okay, so if he was turned at 42 in 1911, 1869 was when he was born. Date of death, 1911. Okay, so if we're going to play this in the modern age, so if he was 42 when he was turned, 42, and now it's, what year is it? Oh, right, 2020. Okay, so he's like 151. All right, so he's 151 years old. That's his true age on our biographical portion of our sheet. Apparent age is 42. Okay, great. We're in good shape here, guys. Now that we know his age, we'll figure out his sire. That's next on the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. So for his sire, I think what I'm going to do is turn to, if you look in the back of the book, well, towards the back of the book, they have some inspiration for sires. So let's have a look and see if there's something that we can find that would make a good sire. I think that having your sire early on in your character story is going to help you make decisions later. Primal femininity? No. Theo Bell? Loyal lapdog? Nope, that's not it. Keontae Hearsay? Don't think so. No, I don't think it was a lady that turned him. I think it was a guy. You were the scholar of the Convention of Thorns, at which vampires of all clans arranged information at the Camarilla. Perhaps you descended from one of the most important participants who spoke up at the convention, voicing their proposal for the new traditions. Maybe you study this historical period avidly, in search of higher meaning and understanding of the laws that govern the kindred society today. You can recite the names of vampires who attended, the iterations of the traditions proposed by the convention. Oh, this could be interesting. Not the circulatory system. Most vampires claim it's a mythical state of enlightenment, but few claim to have reached the fabled state of Golconda. No. The First Inquisition? No. Descendant of Helena? Oh, Toreador characters only. Okay. Ventru characters only. Cool. All right. Well, let's see if we can find a Nosferatu character only. Jeanette and Therese Vorman? Nope. We're not. We really... Malkavian characters, Nosferatu. Okay. Descendant of the Zealots. Zelos? Yeah. All of Clan Nosferatu knows their great ancient as a master planner, mason, and scholar of geometric power. Though he disappeared in New York in the 1990s, he left behind libraries of books, plans, treatises on the power of location sacred geometry. His descendants continue with his good work. Okay, that doesn't give me what I thought it was going to give me. A Secret War veteran, the Trinity? What's the Trinity? Vampires of a certain age remember their peers and descendants of the golden age of Constantinople. A combination of crusades. Ooh, this could be interesting for our phantom character. Refers to Istanbul as Constantinople. You are one of the few who know why. Constantinople represented everything possible in a city where vampires shared ideas and discussed philosophies without falling to carnage. Once per story, you can ask the storyteller a question about Constantinople's past and be given an accurate answer. What do we want to do? I think we're going to have to create a sire. So, let's go back to Phantom of the Opera and see what kind of stuff we can... Oh, wait. Okay, so in Phantom of the Opera, they were performing Hannibal, right? Ooh, we have an official site. Let's start there. Let's look at the U.S. tour for reasons. Cameron McIntosh is new. Matthew Bourne. I enjoy taking names from things that already kind of exist. Whoa, that's Olaf. Little Olaf. Oh my god, my sire's name is Olaf. I've just decided. Okay, Olaf what? It's going to be a French name, right? So we are going to Google, and we are going to look up French surnames. Okay, Ancestry.ca is not going to give me what I'm looking for here. Boisseau? Bonnell? Bonnet? No, not feeling a B last name. Okay. De Villiers. A South African rugby union coach named in 2008 as head coach of the country's national team. A French politician is Philippe de Villiers. I'm into that. I think we can use de Villiers. I hear you, Olaf. Thank you. Oh, right. Olaf de Villiers. Okay. That was his name. Sire. All right. Cool. Olaf de Villiers. All right. Cool. Generation. So, according to the book, your generation has a lot to do with your blood potency. So, we're going to flip back to the character generation page, which I think is page 35 or something crazy like that. Gangrel, no. Malkavian, no. We are after Nosferatu. Okay. So, Nosferatu. All right, we've got Olaf de Villiers is the sire to our character Marcus Thaxton, who are two different actors who have played the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera. Okay, so inspired by that, where did he get his love of opera from, do you think? Was he a street rat? Was he a street kid? Was he... Ooh, I know. No, because he was 42. So perhaps he was an understudy. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, he was an understudy for... Well, let's take more inspiration from Phantom of the Opera. They were getting ready to perform Hannibal in the play. Let me just confirm that. A French novel by Gaston Leroux. They are also used to provide the context of fictional operas that were taking place within the show itself. Hannibal, Il Muto, and the Phantom's masterwork, Don Juan Triumphant. You will find yourself looking up many interesting things while you're trying to put your characters together. Okay, let's just go with Hannibal Il Muto as the opera that he was working on. Again, we're staying close to the Phantom of the Opera stuff. So we're going to go again down into notes. This is just going to help add a little bit of depth and a little bit of color to your character. Okay, so Hannibal, history. So he was a stagehand. No, he was an understudy, right? That's what we said. Understudy for the role of... And we're going to go back to Wikipedia, and we are going to find... I don't think that's what I'm wanting here. So, what we'll do is we will use the name of Gaston Leroux, who wrote the novel that Phantom of the Opera is based on. I feel like that's a nice little tribute. So, Gaston, he was the understudy of Gaston Leroux. Also, great name. Cool. So this was kind of the real creative part that you can get into with Vampire the Masquerade in terms of your character development. Now it's just kind of making choices at this point. Next on the GSMC Sci-Fi podcast, we continue with our character creation for Vampire the Masquerade V5. We're going to start to get into attributes and skills.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. We're going to get to your attributes and skills in our Vampire the Masquerade V5 character build. But first, a quick recap. Our Nosferatu based on Phantom from Phantom of the Opera. What we have so far is his name, which I think we're making good progress on, to be honest. Okay, so his name is Marcus Thaxton, which we took from two of the actors who have performed the role of Phantom. We have set the chronicle in France, which is something that you're not going to do when you pick your characters, your storyteller, your DM, your game master, whatever you want to call the role, the person who's telling the story. They're going to tell you what chronicle you're playing in, and that will kind of give you the location of the story. So if it's in Las Vegas, if it's in Chicago, New York, I just picked France because Phantom of the Opera, the Paris Opera House, and all of that stuff. So his sire was Olaf de Villiers. He is of Clan Nosferatu. So far, we know that he was embraced when he was 42. And that happened in 1911. He was born in 1869. His appearance has him forever at age 42. His archetype is the rat, which, according to the Nosferatu, is one who who are kind of out for themselves. They will turn on anybody as they see fit, which I think may be the right move if we're going to pin Phantom on a Nosferatu. I think that makes the most sense out of the archetypes that are here in the book. I'm sure that if you spoke with your storyteller, you could go ahead and you could homebrew a little something together. But for our purposes here today, that's what we're going to go with. So that is his archetype. And in his history, he was the understudy for the role of Gaston Leroux during the Paris Opera House production of Hannibal El Muto. Cool. This is great. I actually really want to play this character. So there's that. Okay. Amazing. Now, here's where things I found got a little tricky. So, we need to find our page. So, in the book, there is a page that is your character creation summary. If you're going to get the book, it's on page 136 and 137. So, the core concept, character's name in life, that's what we have. What did they do? Where they were? When were they embraced? All of that stuff. We have that. Clan and sire. We have that as well. Attributes. Now, here's where things are going to start to get a little bit tricky, which I think is a great time for you to have a look at the character sheet. So, your attributes. You're going to take 1 at 4, 3 attributes at 3, 4 attributes at 2, and 1 attribute at 1. So what they're talking about here is they have a number of attributes that you can give to your character. They are broken down into 3 different selections. There's physical, social, and mental. For Phantom, I feel like manipulation is a pretty solid one to crank up to 4. So that's going to be our 1 at 4. And then we have 3 attributes at 3. So the other attributes are strength, dexterity, stamina, charisma, composure, intelligence, wits, and resolve. I feel like resolve would be important for Phantom. And I also feel like intelligence is important for the Phantom. And perhaps I'm torn between charisma and composure, for sure. I think his charisma needs to be actually, let's make his wits another 3. So those are my 3 at 3. So all of my mental attributes are all 3s. I think that's smart for Phantom because he was definitely a mind game kind of guy. Okay, so that is our 3 at 3, 4 attributes at 2. So let's give him charisma and composure at 2, as well as let's give him 2 in strength and 2 in stamina. And then 1 at 1. So we'll put his dexterity at 1. He's not a super dexterous guy. Now, at the bottom of the skills section, you'll see 3 health, willpower, and humanity. Each of those have 10 squares. I don't think as you're starting, anybody is going to have all 10 of those maxed out. I don't think so. So for your health, what you're going to look at is your stamina plus 3. So our stamina is 2 plus 3. That gives us 5 for health. So we'll tick off 5 little bars. And your willpower is your composure and resolve. So that's another 5. Skills. Now, this is interesting because you have, 27 skills. So you have 20 different skills that you can select from. This covers everything from athletics to intimidation to occult to politics to being streetwise to larceny and firearms and all that kind of stuff, okay? Now, there's different skill point distribution that you can use. There's Jack of all trades, balanced, and specialist. Jack of all trades, I feel like he's pretty specialized as Phantom. I think that he may be specialized in, because he was a pretty big manipulator, right? This is not a combat character. This is definitely a playing the long game kind of guy. So I think we're going to take the specialist. So the specialist basically is really good at one thing, kind of good at a few others. So let's go with performance persuasion for Phantom. It's not going to be larceny. Stealth is definitely going to be a 3 because he was pretty sneaky. Streetwise will probably be a 3. Persuasion, intimidation. Okay, let's go with performance at 4, because he was an understudy in his life. Okay, so that's our 1 skill at 4. So 3 skills at 3. I feel like we're going to have some intimidation. We are going to have awareness at 3. Brawl, craft, drive, firearms, larceny. Oh, stealth. Duh. That needs to be a 3. Okay. And then we have 3 skills at 2. So let's pick... it seems to me that Phantom was a sword fighter, so we'll pick that at 2. We'll give him some streetwise stuff. We'll give him some subterfuge as well. And let's give him some etiquette. So that should be 4 at 2, is that right? No, 3 skills at 2. Melee. Oh, no. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay, let's take subterfuge down to 1 then. So we need to pick 2 more. Okay, let's go with brawl. Let's go with athletics. And let's give him a little bit of politics. That could be an interesting mix with Phantom. Now, it says add free specialties to academics, craft, performance, and science skills. Okay, so these are freebies. So, we are going to get academics, so he's no dummy. We're going to get a craft, which means you're good at creating. Performance, another one there. So he's got 5 performance. Dude knows how to put on a show. And we're going to give him a science. And then take 1 more free specialty. I think larceny might be a good one. Oh, no. Persuasion. Hello. How did I not pick persuasion? All right, so he's looking like a pretty interesting guy. Definitely a very mental kind of character. Up next on the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network, we're going to talk merits and flaws as our character build for Vampire the Masquerade continues.
Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blanks and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. Now we're talking merits and flaws. Disciplines. So choose 2 of your clan disciplines. Put 2 dots in one and 1 dot in the other for others characters, thin blood characters. Okay, neither of those apply. So we're going to flip back to the clan description for Nosferatu and have a look. So our disciplines are animalism, definitely not for Phantom. I can never say this word. Obfuscate. Anyway, the Nosferatu have mixed opinions as the discipline enables them to blend in with others, but also masquerades that which defines their clan. Some Nosferatu are proud of their unconcealed monstrosity, while others take every effort to hide it, regardless of the controversies. It's an excellent tool for hunting and feeding, as well as a few other methods that allow a sewer rat to interact with the kind. Okay, so we're going to take potence and obfuscate. I can never pronounce that word. That's absolutely crazy. All right, let's put this one down first. Obfuscate and potence. So we're going to put 1 in obfuscate. Ugh. Man, how am I going to pronounce that word? Obfuscate and potence. Now, the clan Bane is going to be one that we're paying attention to as well. So there is actually a specific spot for that. It's on the 2nd page. And Clan Bane is hideous and vile. All Nosferatu count as having a repulsive flaw and can never increase their rating in the looks merit. In addition, any attempt to disguise themselves as non-deformed incur a penalty to the dice pool equal to the character's bane severity. This includes discipline powers like Mask of 1,000 Faces and Imposter's Guise. Most Nosferatu do not breach the masquerade by just being seen. They are perceived by mortals to be grotesque and even terrifying, but are not always supernaturally so. So their bane is simply that they ugly. Nosferatu bane is ugliness. But it's interesting that their grotesqueness wouldn't break the masquerade. That's interesting. Which gives us a -2 to the dice pool. So, there's also a spot on the character sheet for backgrounds, merits, and flaws. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to write repulsive flaw in there. And we're just going to write -2 beside that. I'm not exactly sure what that means yet, but we're not quite that far. But this is just something good for us to have written down as we continue along. All right. Next up in our character creation, we've got our skills. We've got our disciplines, predator type, page 175. This is kind of cool. So it's basically how you feed. So there's the alley cat. There's the bagger, the cleaver, the bloodlech, the consensualist, the sandman, the farmer, the scene queen, and the siren. He may be a farmer. Oh no, he only feeds from animals. Actually, phantom. I think alley cat is the answer here for the predator type. So, thinking of Phantom of the Opera, we've got a combative assault feeder. You stalk, overpower, and drink from whoever you can when you can. You may or may not attempt to threaten or dominate victims into silence or mask the feeding as a robbery. Think about how you arrived at this direct approach to feeding and what makes you comfortable in an unlife of stalking, attacking, feeding, and escaping. Add a specialty to intimidation or brawl. Gain 1 dot of celerity or potence. Lose a dot of humanity and gain 3 dots of criminal contacts. Ooh, that's a lot. All right, we're going to go with that. I think that makes sense for a phantom-inspired character, right? So add a specialty of intimidation or brawl, which would give us stick-ups or grappling. I think we're going to add to brawl, because I think grappling makes a little bit more sense for our character here. So that gives us 2 now in the brawl skill. Gain 1 dot of celerity or potence. We're going to go with potence because we don't have celerity as our clan choice. Lose 1 dot of humanity. We haven't quite gotten there yet, so we need to make note of that. And gain 3 dots of criminal contacts. All right, I believe that's going to come down into our backgrounds and merits, so I'm just going to put +3 for criminal contacts, which I feel like the Phantom may have. Okay, cool. So that's our predator type. Next, advantages. Spend 7 points on advantages and take 2 points of flaws in addition to the ones gained from your predator type. Alright, so we know that our flaw is the repulsive flaw, and we know that we have 2 of those. I think that's what the -2 was about, because it's a flaw. Okay, cool. Criminal contacts was 3, so we've already have those flaws and merits. 7 points on advantages, 2 points of flaw in addition to the ones gained from your predator type. Okay, so that is back after. So it's like page 179 if you're following along. We do not have any looks. That's not a thing that's going to happen. Archaic. Nope, we can't pick that because we're not old enough. Not all vampires respond to the blood bond. Merits describe advantages and gifts inherent to the character. So linguistics. Each player has a perfect fluency in their birth language, so he would be French. He is kind of an obsessive guy, so maybe taking a bonding flaw wouldn't be so bad. Bonding. So here's what it says for the flaws for this one. Also for the merits. So Bonding. Not all vampires respond to the blood bond equally. Some fall under the sway of a regent with rapturous ease. Others resist with every fiber of their being. You can combine these merits and flaws. A character might be a blood junkie with a short bond, for example. Okay, so bond slave is someone who bonds instantly with the taste of another's vitae. Vitae is what call vampire blood in the game. So a flawed would be a bond junkie. The bond feels sweeter to you once it happens. You subtract 1 dice from your pool to act against a blood bond that you are in. Another flaw is the long bond. Blood bonds on you lose their bond of strength more slowly than normal, decreasing by 1 for each 3 months without being reinforced. We also have unbondable. You cannot be bloodbound. If you're ever short on cash, you could probably sell your vitae to alchemists. No, I don't think that's quite right. Mythic merits and flaws. If I go with mythic merits and flaws and I go with eat food, it means that, so Marcus would be able to eat food. He gets no nourishment from it, so he could blend in with humans a little bit better. But he has to expel it before resting for the day. So basically he's got to barf his guts up before he gets back to good. So I think we're going to take that one. I think we'll go mythic flaw, and we're going to go with eat food. And I always like to write the page number down for quick reference if I forget what it means while we're playing. And that's going to be 2 points. So that's our flaw figured out. Now we get to pick some merits. So we still have 5 points to spend in merits. And contacts. Okay, let's look at that, because we have criminal contact 3. Security systems expert, police lieutenant. Okay, so we already have that one. We don't need that one. We don't need infamy. Perhaps influence. We're not despised and we're not disliked. Well connected. You're guaranteed a respectful hearing. People want to do you favors. Entrenched. Mortal power brokers and factions hesitate to oppose you. It was definitely how how Phantom was inside the opera house. Not sure how much of that was applicable when he was not inside the opera house. And chances are the entirety of the campaign isn't going to be catered to our Marcus. So let's look at something else. Perhaps we're going to take a bond advantage with a short bond. They lose their bond strength more rapidly than normal. I don't know how often he'd be feeding from other vampires, though, so that's a thing to think of. Allies and enemies. Perhaps he has some allies. And we have, 5 points to spend in merits. So let's see. It might be, we may end up going for influence, because we are quite cerebral, right? Okay, so let's go for the, what is this one? Influence merit with 5 points left. We're going to go with 3. And at 3, it is entrenched. Mortal power brokers and factions hesitate to oppose you. It may only be applicable when he is in his opera house, but I feel like having that kind of influence over any kind of situation may be beneficial. So we need to find one more that we can take advantage of at 2. How about our base haven? Good size, security, or privacy. For example, a single family home, or a row house, a wolf enclosure at a zoo, or a branch sewer tunnel, or perhaps the bottom of an opera house. Yep. Okay. Let's take the base haven. Awesome. Okay, so backgrounds and merits. What's next? We have convictions and touchstones. So this is on page 172, and you need to create equal number of touchstones to convictions and add them to the relationship map, and set your humanity to 7. So your humanity score, as the game plays on and you do more and more terrible things, you lose your humanity points and you become more and more feral. And I believe you can gain them back. That's pure speculation, but I feel like that would make sense. Okay. Convictions and touchstones. Create an equal number of touchstones, each connected to one conviction. Add them to the relationship map. So 1 to 3 convictions on page 172. Let's have a look at what these convictions can be. Next on the GSMC Sci-Fi podcast, our Vampire the Masquerade character build continues. We're going to try to find a little bit of morality in a game where no one could be the hero. Next.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sci-Fi podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross, looking for morality in a game of nothing but bad guys. Let's try to sort through that with our Vampire the Masquerade character build. Beliefs, convictions. Okay. Thou shalt not kill. Kill only the unworthy or unbelievers or in fair combat or in self-defense. Never expose children to violence. Love thy neighbor. Disobedience is dishonor. Protect the innocent from harm. Courage is the highest virtue. Always keep your sword, your sworn word. And the truth is sacred. Thou shalt not lie. I think that he is going to keep his word. So I think the truth above all else. So this is under touchstones and convictions. Awesome. Now we're going to pick 2 convictions and we're going to go with 2 beliefs as well. Also, if you are going to be sitting around a table with a group of people, you may want to talk about the things that make sense for the group to have all together. There's also slavery is evil, obey authority, my country, right or wrong, none may control me, never do drugs, thou shalt not torture, the guilty must be punished, from each according to their abilities, to each according to their needs, rob from the rich, give to the poor, reject wealth, for it corrupts, never act against. Okay, there's a whole list of them, but they also have a couple here that are broken down into groups, and I think for Phantom, Gothic Romantic may work best here, which is never deny true love, the guilty should suffer, and uphold the norms of decent society. You know what? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't agree with that for Phantom. How about from each according to their abilities to each according to their needs? Great. I think that's going to make a lot of sense for our Phantom-inspired Nosferatu. Touchstones and convictions. Touchstones. We need to pick 2 of those. Surviving human spouse? Nope. A human child? Nope. A human who looks exactly? Nope. A human you admired in life or their descendant? Maybe. Someone you have come to recognize as a rare, decent person in your eyes. Maybe. Someone who represents something you once held dear in life. Ooh, this is good. Yep. Okay. That's the one we're going to go with for his. Because we're thinking, of course, of Christine Daae, right? Who represents something you once held dear. That makes loads of sense for this character. That's perfect. Okay. We need one more, and I think that we should hold music as a sacred space for him. I think when he's listening to his old opera records, which he listens to on a gramophone, obviously, that's going to be like a very private time for him. We've got that done. What's next on our character summary sheet? Advantages, we've done that. Convictions and touchstones. Yes, set your humanity to 7. Together with the storyteller. Okay, so he was embraced in 1911. So that is going to put him at 10th or 11th generation. We're going to make it 11th because I just think that 11th with him... No, you know what? With him being 40-something, let's go 10th. Because we did set him to be a little bit older. So that means he gets a blood potency of 2, which is something that your is decided by the age of your blood. So if you are, an older than 10th or 11th, your blood potency would obviously be a little bit higher. So that's a whole thing. Each player adds 2 points of advantages, 2 points of flaws, subtracts 1 humanity, so we have 6 humanity instead of 7. Each player adds 2 points of flaws, 2 points of advantages, so we need to pick another advantage and another flaw. Okay, this is where I started to get a little bit lost. So we need to pick one more at 2, and repulsive. You lose 2 die from all relevant blood. I don't know. We want something that has 2 points to it. So under the mask in merits and flaws, we have a flaw here called known blank body. Your biometrics, name, history, and known associates and allies. Aliases, appear in several intelligence agency databases flagged as potential terrorist. Any inquisitor can read between the lines and recognize you as a vampire. That would be a really fun flaw, and that takes care of those 2 points that we have from our generational situation. So we're going to go known blank body. So let's look at another advantage. Let's go short bond here. Blood bonds on you lose their bond strength more rapidly than normal. Because I don't feel like this guy is going to be in another vampire's thrall for very long. I think he's much more fascinated by humans, by mortals. I think that makes more sense for a vampire version of the vampire. Okay, cool. So now what else we have here is subtracts 1, and each player spends 35 experience points. So to spend your experience points, you can increase attributes, you can increase skill, you can add a new specialty if you want. You can add a clan discipline or one from any of the other clans. Let's add a discipline here because I think that adding a discipline for this character is going to just kind of make up for some of his shortcomings as far as like brawl and, the general toughness is. So let's see what we can do here because we've got 35 points. If we're going to add another discipline, it's new level times 7. I think we're going to pick celerity. Celerity is like quickness and the ability to move in shadows and stuff like that, I think. I think that's going to be good for this character. And we still have 12 points, and we can add a new specialty. It will cost us 3 points for each specialty. We could also add another for a gate. So that would be 1. So it'd be 2 times 5. So that's 10. So that still leaves us with 11 points. Cool. So let's increase our skills. Let's give us a firearm. So that's 3. Let's add drive. Let's add investigation. And let's add occult. I think that's all of our points. Or it's very close to it. For our purposes here today, it's very close to it. So we need to go to our disciplines and have a look at what all of the disciplines break down to. All right, so we have 2 points in obfuscate. Really got to figure out how to pronounce that word. It's just a weird spelling, Obfuscate. Okay, so we have level 2, so that means we get to have Cloak of Shadows, Silence of Death. We get to have Unseen Passage. So that's only 3 in that one. Okay, that's cool. Right, okay, so we took Celerity too. So we get a lot in Celerity because we took 3 levels in it. So the vampire gains balance and grace equal to and surpassing world-class trapeze artists. Fleetness, you can move and react at dizzying speed. Blink, the vampire swiftly closes in on a foe, engaging or escaping in the blink of an eye. And traversal, With blurring speed, the vampire can run and climb any surface, including vertical and even liquid mediums. While traversal does not grant insect-like supernatural traction, running up or along a wall presents little problem. So those are the things that celerity gives us. Now, with obfustigate, we get to figure out how to pronounce it. No, we get Cloak of Shadow, so standing perfectly still, the user blends in with surroundings. Silence of Death, popular among the Banu Hakim, which is old assassins, I believe. This power is complete silence. It nullifies all sound made by them, and it works on people within earshot and does not fool microphones or other electronic sound detectors. Unseen Passage. With this power, the vampire can now move around while staying hidden. The user is functionally invisible. So that's cool. But again, the flaw there is that it doesn't work against electronics. Next on the GSMC Sci-Fi podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network, we're going to continue with our breakdown of our disciplines. We're going to get into potence next.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast. I'm your host, Melinda Barkhouse-Ross. So, potence. This is a cool one, and again, we're at level 3 for this one. So we have Lethal Body. With this power, the user is capable of causing horrendous damage to mortals. Yes. Lethal Body. We get Soaring Leap. Possessing unholy strength is more than arms and fists. The user can leap far higher and further than any mortal. So that's kind of cool. Prowess. Vampires with potence gain far greater strength from their blood than those who lack it. Level 3, we get Brutal Feed, known as the Savage Kiss. This power allows the user to employ an unholy inner strength. When draining a victim, in mere seconds, the attacker swallows torrents of blood while mauling the victim. That sounds horrifying. But perfect for Vampire the Masquerade. Spark of Rage. The vampire can incite anger and cause frenzy with powers. We get Uncanny Grip. Focusing their unnatural strength into toes and fingers, the vampire grips and burrows their extremities into almost any surface, enabling them to climb or even hang otherwise unsupported from walls and ceilings. That's cool. I think I like it better than Spark Rage, so I'm going to drop Spark Rage, and I'm going to go with Uncanny Grip. You actually do get both, but I'm going to focus on Uncanny Grip. I think that makes a little bit more sense. I'm going to just write them both down in one spot. So he has a blood potency of 2, and that's because he is of the 10th generation. So on the blood surge, we're going to put plus 1 die, because that's what the little chart here tells us. Superficial damage mended. This is per rouse check. This is going to be something that your storyteller is going to have to keep track of. But this is information that you need to have. So, power bonus is plus 1 die. Rouse reroll is level 1. Feeding penalty. Animal and bagged blood slakes half hunger. And Bane severity. What are we looking at for Bane severity? Ooh, a 2. That's that repulsive part that we were talking about. Okay, so this is our character. I like him a lot, actually. Okay, so our character's name, to summarize, is Marcus Thaxton. We came up with the name simply by taking it to, who have both played Phantom of the Opera before. His sire is Olaf de Villiers. Olaf would be the dog that you heard barking earlier, and de Villiers was just a French name that I liked the sound of. He is of the Nosferatu clan. He's 10th generation, and this chronicle would be one that would take place in France. He's a big-time manipulator, a lot of mental power with this character. His performance is maxed out. That was because of clan and specific things that we put together for him. Not the strongest when it comes to like combat and things like that, but he gets along just fine. He's got 5 health, 5 willpower, and 6 humanity points. His disciplines are obfuscate, potence, and celerity. He has 3 points in both potence and celerity. We bought celerity with our experience points, which is one of the last things that you do. His touchstones and convictions are truth is sacred, thou shalt not lie, and from each according to their abilities to those according to their needs. Someone who represents something that he once held dear in life and he's still clinging to, so that could be perhaps a new opera singing a protege. To him, music is a sacred space. He loves to play old records on a gramophone. That's very sacred time for him, almost meditative. He has criminal contacts at 3. A mythic flaw, he can eat food. That's an advantage at 2. For influence, he is up to 3. Base haven is 2. Known blank body, which is a flaw, big flaw at 2. And short bond is another advantage. So his true age is 151 years old. He was turned when he was 42. He was born in 1869 and died in 1911. That does it for this week. And next week we'll take on another character build for Vampire the Masquerade V5. Hopefully you catch a little bit of inspiration, and if not, hopefully you're going to walk away with some characters that you think are pretty rad to add to your game. If you have a little bit of extra time on your hands, you could go ahead and drop a 5-star review for us on your favorite podcast platform. We would really appreciate that. Even some kind words would be awesome. Would love to chat with you on Twitter as well about what you think the perfect vampire build is for Vampire the Masquerade. Until next week, I'm Melinda Barkhouse-Ross on the GSMC Sci-Fi Podcast for the GSMC Podcast Network.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.